AITA for skipping my brother's wedding after he skipped mine. You'd think blood would mean something. That after all the birthdays, scraped knees, holidays, and family dinners, your own brother wouldn't treat you like a placeholder. But mine did. And now, with his big day approaching, everyone's asking if I'll be the bigger person. But what no one seems to care about is what happened on mine. I'm 27, married to a man I love deeply, and I still feel the sting. From a wedding day that didn't go the way I dreamed, not because of rain, or a late caterer, or a dropped cake. No, it was my brother Jacob, the youngest of 4 siblings, who managed to cast a shadow I didn't expect. Jacob's 22, the only boy out of us siblings, and our parents treat him like he's spun from gold. He's just a little different, they always say. Give him some grace, which is code for let him do whatever he wants, and if you don't like it, you're the problem. It's been this way our entire lives. He'd throw tantrums, start fights, lie, and manipulate, and somehow he always walked away blameless. It only got worse when Kelly came into the picture. She is 21, the type of girl who plays innocent with her wide eyes and sing-song voice, but stirs chaos the moment attention isn't on her. Kelly believes the sun rises and sets with Jacob, and she's made it her mission to protect him from his mean sisters, and apparently from reality. For my wedding, Jason and I sent invitations a full year in advance. A year. We followed up with reminders 6 months out, just to be safe. Everything was organized, thought through, mapped out. I had dreamed of this day since I was a teenager. We weren't doing anything extravagant, just a beautiful spring celebration with the people we love most. I wanted all my siblings by my side, including Jacob, who we'd asked to be our ring bearer, a sentimental choice since he was always the baby of the family. A week before the wedding, Jacob casually tells me he won't be coming. No apology. No excuse beyond Kelly and I are going on vacation. Like it was just another weekend. I was stunned. I begged him, reminded him how important his presence was, that I had planned with him in mind, that I needed him. He didn't budge. My mom stepped in, as she always does when her golden boy gets pushed back. Don't worry, she told me. He'll be there. I'll make sure of it. She swore on everything that he'd show up. And for a moment, I believed her. I let that little sliver of hope in. I let it keep me afloat through the stress of the final days before the ceremony. And then the morning of, an hour before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I got the news. Jacob wasn't coming. Not only that, he never intended to. The vacation was real. They were already gone. Not a call. Not a text. Just silence. My heart broke in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't just disappointment, it was betrayal. My sisters and Jason had to calm me down as I sat there in full hair and makeup, veil on, bouquet in hand, tears streaming down my face. I had pictured that moment 100 times, me walking down the aisle, eyes locked on Jason, with everyone I love there. And now, the empty chair in the front row was screaming at me. I made it through the ceremony. I smiled for the photos. I danced and toasted and laughed, but it was all laced with an ache I couldn't shake. I didn't understand how someone who shared my childhood, who I'd stood up for time and time again, could just ditch me and not care, not even pretend to. So when Jacob and Kelly announced their engagement a few months later, I was caught off guard by how quickly my emotions calcified into something colder. He told us the wedding would be on May 30th, said it with the same air of entitlement he always has. Like it was a royal decree. Kelly followed up with a group text stating that our attendance was mandatory. Yes, in all caps. No questions, no flexibility, just an expectation that we drop everything and show up. Because that's how it works in their world. They demand, and everyone scrambles to accommodate. At first I was numb, then I started to feel something hotter. A sense of justice, almost. Why was I supposed to bend over backwards for the brother who couldn't even bother to show up for me? Who left me on the most important day of my life without a word? I told my mom I was thinking of skipping their wedding. She lost it. Not. Just disappointed, furious. Said I was being petty. Said I was hurting the family. That I needed to grow up and move past it. That Jacob was young and made a mistake. But if my pain didn't matter then, why does this party matter now? The guilt trip didn't stop there. Jacob and Kelly both reached out, not to apologize, but to double down. They called me petty, a brat, selfish. Kelly said I was desperate for attention, and that family should always support family. The irony almost made me laugh. Support? Where was their support when I stood at the altar with an empty chair beside me? The final straw came just minutes after I posted my thoughts to a private group chat with my sisters. My oldest sister, who's married to a woman, said late husbands and wives aren't even invited. I blinked. What? Apparently Kelly didn't want any spouses at the wedding. Her words, they're temporary. I don't want them in the pictures. I felt my blood run cold. My husband of barely a year, someone I vowed my life to, wasn't welcome. Neither was my sister's wife. Because Kelly, at 21, decided marriage didn't count unless she said it did. My sister immediately backed out. Said she wouldn't attend a wedding that disrespected her family. And suddenly, I wasn't just considering skipping Jacob's wedding. I was dead set on it, and still the phone calls came. My mom begging, my dad staying silent, Jacob angry, Kelly smug, but my heart was tired. Tired of being the one who always had to swallow the pain and play nice. Tired of pretending family means anything when respect doesn't go both ways. And I kept thinking, would they do this for me? Would they sacrifice for me? Would they show up for me? even when it was inconvenient. I already knew the answer. They didn't, and they won't. The worst part wasn't the hypocrisy. It wasn't even the disrespect. It was the expectation, the quiet, insistent assumption that I would just get over it. That because they had moved on, I should too. But I hadn't, not really. I had buried the pain under wedding photos and thank you cards and honeymoon memories, but it was still there. The memory of standing in my wedding dress, waiting for a brother who never came. And now that the roles were reversed, now that Jacob's wedding was looming and the shoe was firmly on the other foot, I realized something that scared me more than I wanted to admit. I didn't care about revenge. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to smile through clenched teeth. I didn't want to sit in a pew while Kelly pretended to cry delicately and Jacob soaked up attention he hadn't earned. I didn't want to take a single photo that would end up in one of Kelly's heavily filtered social media posts, captioned with family love or blessed beyond measure, or whatever other performance she was staging that day. I wanted to be free of it. I wanted to protect my peace. My mom didn't see it that way. It's not about what happened last year, she kept saying. This is about family. You need to show up for your brother. I wanted to scream. I did show up for him. My whole life, I showed up for him. Covered for him. Defended him. Let him act out and ignored the fallout. I even forgave him for things I never got an apology for. And when it really counted, when I needed him to show up for me, he left. And now I was being guilt-tripped for not pretending that didn't happen. Jason saw the toll it was taking on me. Every time a new text came in from Kelly, my stomach turned. She was relentless. Not just about the wedding itself, but about everything around it. What we were supposed to wear. When we were supposed to RSVP. Where we should sit. Who we could and couldn't talk to. She even tried to assign conversation topics for the reception tables. I'm not joking. She sent out an actual group email with suggestions like tell a memory about the groom or ask about our honeymoon plans. It was so absurd it almost tipped into comedy. But then the real hit came, a follow-up from Kelly saying she regretfully had to rescind Jason's invitation. Just like that. Since we're going for a family-only vibe and to keep the energy intimate, she wrote, we've decided it's best not to include partners who aren't blood relatives. I stared at the email for 5 straight minutes. Jason had been in our family for over a year. We were married. But to her, he was temporary. Not even worth a chair. Jason took it with more grace than I did. It's fine, he said. I wasn't looking forward to it anyway. But I saw the way he looked at me, the flash of hurt he tried to hide. He hadn't asked for this drama. He hadn't missed anyone's wedding. He was being punished just for existing. That was when my decision hardened. I wasn't going. I wouldn't reward bad behavior with attendance. I wouldn't lend my presence to an event that actively excluded my husband and insulted my sister's marriage. And if that made me the villain in Kelly's narrative, so be it. I could live with that. The backlash was immediate. My mom called me crying. You're tearing this family apart, she said. You don't understand what this means to Jacob. I wanted to say, did you cry when he skipped mine? Did you tell him he was tearing the family apart when he flew off to Sabio instead of handing me the rings? But I didn't. I just listened. Then I told her, if he wants me there, he can start by acknowledging what he did. And until then, I'm not putting myself in a room where my marriage isn't respected. She hung up. My phone didn't ring again for 2 days. Then Jacob texted me, not to apologize, not to reflect. Just, wow, didn't know you were that. Bitter. Guess we know who the real attention seeker is. Kelly followed up with, so sad that you're letting your insecurities ruin our big day, but we're not surprised. Jason's not even cute, lol. I sat there stunned. Not because they were being cruel, I expected that, but because it was so casual. Like they didn't even recognize how disgusting they sounded. Like it was normal. Like I was the crazy one for setting a boundary. I showed Jason the texts. He read them, nodded, and then gently took my phone out of my hand and set it face down on the table. You don't need to keep giving them space in your head, he said. They've already rented enough. He was right. So I blocked the numbers. I told my mom I wouldn't be going. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone. Not because I wanted to make a statement. But because I was done playing nice for people who wouldn't even show up when it counted. The wedding came and went. I spent the day hiking with Jason in a national park, completely off-grid. We took photos of trees and waterfalls and each other. We sat on a blanket and ate peanut butter sandwiches and laughed until our cheeks hurt. It was one of the most peaceful days I've had in years. When I turned my phone back on that evening, there were texts waiting. One from my mom saying she hoped I was happy. One from a cousin who went to the wedding and messaged me, good call staying away, total disaster. Apparently, Kelly had a full-blown meltdown because the photographer wasn't capturing her angles right. Jacob got drunk and tried to give a toast where he compared their relationship to a rescue mission. The cake fell. One of Kelly's friends got caught making out with a groomsman in the bridal suite. And worst of all, no one really danced. The whole thing felt stiff and forced, like everyone was waiting for something real to happen, and it never did. I almost felt bad, almost. But mostly, I felt nothing. And that, in its own way, was the most healing part of all. The drama, the guilt, the emotional blackmail, it didn't work this time. I had stepped out of the cycle. I had protected my peace. My mom eventually reached back out, more subdued. I still wish you'd come, she said over the phone. But I can't say I blame you. That was as close to validation as I was going to get. I took it. My sisters backed me completely. The oldest one never went either, refused to attend a wedding that treated her wife like a stranger. My middle sister went out of obligation but left before the dinner even started. It felt gross, she said. Like pretending everything was fine when it so clearly wasn't. And maybe that's the lesson here. Pretending doesn't fix anything. It just buries the problem deeper until one day you can't smile through it anymore. I'm done pretending. I'm done folding myself to fit someone else's comfort zone. If being honest, setting boundaries, and protecting the people I love makes me the asshole in their story, fine. I'll wear the title proudly. I thought after the wedding, things would settle. That once the dust cleared, people would stop picking sides and start focusing on their own lives again. But instead, the silence changed. It got heavy, sharp around the edges. Like I could feel the weight of every unsent text, every cold glance. In the group chat, every unspoken comment being typed and deleted. My mom didn't bring up Jacob for weeks, which in our family was less of a truce and more of a quiet warning. If you don't say it out loud, maybe it'll go away. But it didn't. Not for me. And not for Jason either. One night, I came home from work and found him sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a piece of mail in his hand. "It's from your mom," he said, pushing it across the table. It was an envelope, plain white, addressed to both of us in her handwriting. Inside was a card, some soft watercolor scene, and the words, "Family is everything," embossed in gold on the front. Inside, she'd written, "Hoping this can be a fresh start. Let's do Sunday dinner, just us, no drama. Love, Mom." I wanted to be relieved. I wanted to believe she meant it. But all I could think about was the months of silence after my wedding, the insults I swallowed from Jacob and Kelly, and the way my mom had twisted herself in knots, trying to justify their behavior. A fresh start sounded nice in theory, but in practice, it felt like a rug being pulled back over a stain no one wanted to scrub out. Still, I agreed. Because I'm not above wanting to fix things. Because I miss my mom. Because I missed what? Our family used to feel like before weddings, before lines were drawn, before Kelly came in like a grenade with a diamond ring. Sunday dinner started off polite. We talked about safe things, work, the weather, my dad's cholesterol. Jason was charming, as always. My mom laughed a little too loudly. It wasn't normal, but it was ... something. Until dessert. That's when she cleared her throat and said, "I talked to Jacob." Just like that, forks froze midair. Jason looked at me. I kept my face neutral. "He's hurt," she continued. "He really wanted you there?" I took a breath, slow and deep. "He didn't want me at my wedding." "That was different," she said immediately. "He was younger. Less mature. It was a year ago. Exactly. He's grown." "He sees that now?" "Has he said that to me?" I asked. "Has he reached out? Has he apologized?" She looked away. "No, but he said he misses you." I almost laughed. "Misses me? Like you can miss someone you were never really there for? Like absence makes the heart grow fonder, even when you chose that absence with your whole chest and didn't flinch?" When it left someone else shattered, I stood up. "Thanks for dinner. We should go." Jason followed, quiet but supportive, always knowing when I've hit my limit. My mom didn't argue. She just nodded like she'd expected that outcome. I think part of her still believes that if she can play the middle long enough, the rest of us will cave first. But that's the thing about drawing a line. Once it's there, it's there. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. And every time someone tries to step over it without owning their part, the line just digs deeper. A few days later, my sister sent me a screenshot of one of Kelly's new Instagram posts. A photo from their wedding, her in her dress alone, standing on a beach. The caption said, "Not everyone will support your happiness. Some people are just born bitter." Grateful for those who showed up. We know who the real family is. I didn't even react. Not out loud, not to my sister. I just saved the screenshot, locked my phone, and went for a run until the cold air made my lungs burn. Because here's the thing, people like Kelly don't stop. Not when they're right, not when they're wrong. Not even when they know they've pushed too far. They need an enemy. They need someone to blame. And if you refuse to play nice, or keep your head down, you become the villain in their carefully curated story. I was fine being the villain. I just wasn't going to be silent about it anymore. Around that time, Jason suggested we host a dinner. Not for my parents. Not for peacekeeping. Just for us. For the people who showed up. The ones who mattered. So we sent out invites, not to make a statement, but to make a space. A table for real family, chosen or blood. My sisters came. Their spouses came. A few close cousins who had backed us during the whole ordeal. We made a huge spread roast chicken, lemon potatoes, homemade bread, chocolate cake. It felt like reclaiming something. Halfway through the night, my oldest sister raised her glass. "To the people who show up," she said. Not because they have to, but because they want to. We clinked glasses, and I felt something loosen in my chest. The grief didn't vanish, but it didn't rule me anymore. Jacob still hasn't reached out. Kelly still posts her little jabs online. My mom still sends me vague texts like, "I hope one day we're all close again." But I don't chase it anymore. I don't chase people who left me standing alone. On my wedding day, I don't twist myself to earn space in a family that only values me when I'm silent. I've learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. And sometimes you have to close them, not lock them, not slam them. Just close them and wait to see who knocks with humility and who pounds with entitlement. So far, Jacob hasn't. Knocked. I don't know if he ever will. And honestly, It's okay. I don't need an apology to move forward. But I do need to know I won't let myself be disrespected again just because someone shares my DNA. People think forgiveness is about the other person. It's not. It's about you. About choosing peace over resentment. About releasing the hope that the past could have been different. And some days, I do forgive him. I forgive version of Jacob that used to make me laugh until I cried. The kid who stayed up late with me watching cartoons. The teenager who once punched a guy in the face for calling me names at a party. That Jacob, yeah, I forgive him. But the man who let his ego, his girlfriend, and his indifference drive a wedge through our family, that Jacob has some work to do. Maybe one day he'll do it. Maybe he'll grow. Maybe he'll realize that real family doesn't demand loyalty without earning trust. Maybe he'll wake up one morning and wonder if that empty chair at his own wedding meant more than he let on. But until then, I'm building a life without him. A full, joyful, unapologetic life. One where I get to say no without guilt. One where love is earned, not assumed. One where I choose who gets to sit at my table, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Time has a funny way of sifting people out. You start with this big, noisy circle, family, friends, people you thought were forever, and over the years it shrinks. Not because you stopped loving, but because you started seeing clearly. You start asking different questions. Who calls when there's no agenda? Who shows up when it's inconvenient? Who makes room for your boundaries instead of punishing you for having them? The answers are humbling, and sometimes heartbreaking, but they're real. That's where I've landed with Jacob. It's not hate. It's not bitterness. It's clarity. A painful, overdue realization that we were never equals, not in our family's eyes, not in how we were treated, and definitely not in how we treated each other. I spent most of my life bending for him, making excuses for him, watching my parents coddle him while holding me and my sisters to a completely different standard. We were expected to be mature, forgiving, flexible. He got to be fragile, impulsive, difficult, and no one ever questioned it. Kelly just poured gasoline on what was already a dumpster fire of entitlement. She didn't make him this way. She just validated every worst impulse. Every time he acted like the world owed him grace. Without accountability, she clapped for it. Called it self-love or setting boundaries, when really it was just him ducking responsibility. When they skipped my wedding, it wasn't just an absence. It was a declaration. A loud, careless, unmistakable statement that my life, my love, my celebration didn't matter. At least not as much as their vacation. And now, months after I chose not to attend their wedding, that declaration still echoes in the space between us. But here's the thing. I've stopped filling that space with explanations. I don't need to explain why I protected myself. I don't need to defend why I didn't show up for someone who never showed up for me. I don't need to twist myself into some people-pleasing shape just to avoid being called petty or dramatic. Because it's not dramatic to remember who was missing from your life's biggest moments. And it's not petty to say, if you couldn't celebrate me, don't expect me to celebrate you. It's just math, emotional math, addition and subtraction. What people give and what they take. I added, he subtracted. So I adjusted. These days, I think about family differently. Not as a fixed label, but as a living contract. One that requires renewal, not legally, but emotionally. You don't get to default into someone's heart just because you share a bloodline. You have to earn your space in it, not with grand gestures. With consistency, with honesty, with decency. That's what Jason brings me. That's what my sisters bring me. That's what real family looks like. Messy, yes, but grounded in respect and showing up. I still get messages from extended relatives hinting I should let bygones be bygones. That Jacob's not so bad, that he probably regrets it deep down. But regret means nothing without action. And his actions have been loud, his silence even louder. I saw him once after everything, at a cousin's birthday party. We made eye contact from across the room. He looked away first. We didn't speak. He stood with Kelly on one side of the backyard, and I stayed near the grill with my sisters and Jason. It was surreal, being that physically close to someone who used to be a fixture in my life and feeling nothing. Not anger, not longing, just distance. Actual emotional distance, and it was freeing. I didn't have to pretend. Didn't have to fake warmth. Didn't have to force anything. I just existed on my side of the invisible line, and he existed on his. That night, on the drive home, Jason reached over and took my hand. Proud of you, he said. I asked why. For not shrinking. For standing your ground. For not letting guilt rewrite the truth. It hit me then how many times in my life I had allowed guilt to do exactly that. To smudge the sharp edges of betrayal. To erase my pain for the comfort of others. To act like things were fine because people expected me to. But not this time. This time, I let the line hold. And on the other side of that choice, I found peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need closure. The kind that doesn't wait for apologies. The kind that doesn't waste time convincing people who've already shown you who they are. I don't know what the future holds for Jacob and me. Maybe one day he'll call. Maybe he'll say, I'm sorry I hurt you. I didn't realize what I was doing. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he'll go on thinking I'm the villain. The bitter sister. The one who ruined everything by refusing to be walked on. I can live with that. What I couldn't live with was pretending anymore. Pretending my feelings didn't matter. Pretending his absence wasn't a gut punch. Pretending I was okay with being treated like a footnote in my own life. So no, I wasn't the asshole for skipping his wedding. I was the one person in this whole mess who chose honesty over performance. I showed up for myself, finally, and if that makes me the bad guy in their story, so be it. I've learned that being the bad guy in someone else's fiction is better than being a ghost in your own truth. And for once, that's enough.